Good afternoon. I'm Dan Schlegel of Schlegel Golf Course Design out of Annapolis, Maryland. I've been retained by the West Shore Country Club to prepare a long-range master landscape plan for the entire golf course. And this is the presentation that indicates the culmination of the planning efforts over the last 6 or 7 months. I've visited the club many times, been around the golf course quite a few times. I've become well familiar with all the trees on the property, and we're going to discuss in general through the presentation about my observations of the landscaping of the golf course, how it relates to the playability of the golf course, what trees should come out through the planning process, and then what will be replaced as those trees come out. Moving into the presentation, as I reviewed the golf course, my initial observations with the tree population is that it's extremely mature, specifically the evergreens throughout the property. They are at the end of their life cycle. Many are planted very close together and are crowding each other out. There's also a need throughout the golf course for more seasonal interest in the form of flowering trees, maybe some small shrubs, just to serve in how to play areas to make the golf course a little bit more beautiful for the players that are experiencing the golf course. There's also some undesirable varieties of trees that are planted on the golf course. There's some silver maples on the golf course which are good in that they grow quick, but in age they become very weak-wooded and are a very messy tree. We have some very old Chinese elms along the borders of the property that are dying from the top down, dropping a lot of limbs, and also have massive root structures that are causing maintenance issues and possibly could cause playability and safety issues for the golfers. There's some sweet gums out on the property which drop a lot of balls, which they aren't really in play areas, but they do cause issues for maintenance. White pines are proliferate throughout the property. They are a native tree, but as mentioned with the spruce trees, they're getting up there in age, again dropping a lot of limbs, getting deformed, and causing maintenance and liability issues. And then there's some cedars sprinkled on, specifically between holes 10 and 11, which really aren't in character with the rest of the golf course. As far as view sheds and playability of the golf course goes, there are groups of trees out there that do block your view down through golf holes that we want to try to remove some of those, planting new trees in different locations to beautify the golf course. Some of those would be like here on hole number 2. We've got a variety of issues here on 2. While we need to have a buffer down the right side of the golf hole due to the road, we can thin and limb some trees to be able to create a view shed further down the hole. And then on the left, you can see over time that the sycamore tree, while probably everybody recognizes that tree, it's quite deformed, needs to be removed and eventually replaced. Here's hole number 4, another hole which when you stand up on the tee, you have a wonderful view of the golf hole, but with some minor thinning and limbing down the right-hand side of the golf hole, you'll be able to see all the way to the green, playing your route to play the golf hole. Here on hole number 6, we've had a lot of discussion about this golf hole. We've expanded in concert, we've expanded the fairway to the left further in concert with the master plan that was implemented many years ago. And now if you hit on the left side of the fairway where the fairway has been expanded, you're demanding every golfer to have to hit a draw shot into that green to be able to hit the green due to the spruce trees and their encroachment on the left. Another example would be hole number 11, where the golf cart shown there is in the fairway, then we have a step cut of rough going into the primary cut of rough. So even if you hit the fairway on this hole, the oak trees on the left of the landing area demand that you hit a draw again to get into the green. And for better players, it might be okay to demand that they hit a certain type of shot every once in a while, but for the average golfer that can't control their ball as well, sometimes has a hard time getting it in the air, or most people hit a fade, we want to make sure that they can have an enjoyable round of golf. Some other observations: a lot of the trees that are planted really close together are thinning out. We have root rot, shallow root structures in a lot of the trees. Some of the trees are located near tee and green complexes that cause constant maintenance issues during certain times of the year with leaf removal, needle removal. And then we have, as mentioned with the elms, we have a lot of root encroachment throughout the golf course. So here's an example of some of the spruce trees located on the golf course. These here by the clubhouse. You can see where a healthy tree that has had some room to grow and is on its own a little bit is much more fuller in its shape. The ones on the left that are planted really close together, you can see how they're much thinner and thinning out. Those are thinning out up on the top left there between 16 and 12. In addition, over the years in your nursery, you have trees out there that we've been transplanting throughout the golf course. We have a nice maple tree there that we've planted, has been planted. We want to get some of those other undesirable trees out and let that tree flourish and get large. These are some recent photos. You can see this upper picture is the group of spruce trees between hole numbers 3 and 6. Barely any root structure left in that tree. There's probably a dozen or so trees in the same condition in that area that, now that we know this is taking place, we really need to be cognizant of. But you can see there's barely any needles on that tree as it fell to the ground. And then we have another tree over there between 12 and 16 that just fell over due to the poor root structure. And as you can see on the top left, the roots of those trees they aren't going down into the shaly or hard soil at all, creating a real liability. And then we have other trees that are dying from the inside out. As we remove them, we see that it's good that they have come down because they are in poor health. This would be an example of some increased maintenance costs due to location of pine trees near tee complexes. And then this would be an issue closely associated with the root structure. We've got the elms we talked about that have very big root canopies. This happens to be a spruce tree right behind the 18th green that also has a lot of root encroachment. You can see the knees of the roots; they've all been shaved off, but they cause a lot of damage to mowers. Anybody that would hit a ball there that needed to hit a full shot would really be risking injury to their arms or wrists if they were up against the root. So those are the kind of things we've been looking at to try to take care of as we work on the landscape plan. So I'm going to get into some hole-by-hole recommendations for every hole of the golf course, but to go through the planning process a little bit, the club had some really good base material from the past. It had really good contours on it. It had the location of just about every tee at the right spot. All the bunkers are in their present location shown on the tee, and the green complexes were obviously where they are today. But what it did not have was really good detailed tree information. So at the beginning of the project, I toured the golf course 4 or 5 times with the maps in hand and literally documented every tree throughout the entire golf course and came up with an existing tree population plan. And majority of the trees on the golf course are white pines and Norway spruce. You have a lot of maples, you have a lot of oak trees. From that, then we were able to develop a plan that easily showed what trees we think should come out, and that plan is entitled a long-range tree removal plan. We say long-range because it's not our intention to go out there and take down all these trees at one time. We want to work them in as phases. Trees can come down as we plan for new trees to come in. And then finally, we created a long-range master landscape plan that shows where new trees should be planted on the golf course. It specifies the varieties and the species of trees that should be used, how many we're proposing on the golf course. I've shown what the mature size of those trees would be, and then a minimal planting standard of what we want. We want to start out planting fairly large trees. I would recommend at least a caliper size of 3 inches, so that in the large landscape of a golf course, even new trees are going to look small, but the larger we can start out with new planting, the better off we're going to be in the short term getting the course back to the level of more maturity. So with that, we're going to run through the holes on a hole-by-hole basis. On hole number 1, let's just start over here at the tennis courts. We just want to provide a little bit of a buffer around the tennis courts, and hole number 1 showing some leatherleaf viburnum in there, which would be a semi-evergreen shrub, just to shield off the tennis courts, but not grow so tall that it would hinder any view in or out or air circulation in and out of the tennis courts. But down the left-hand side of the hole, we want to take out some of the spruce trees that are there. Up at the corner of the dogleg, the beech, and the other trees that are up there, and the sycamore, they eventually all need to come out in time. With the view out of the clubhouse so prominent on hole number 1, on the left side of the rough, we want to put in a series of red buds and dogwoods to help with the flowering of seasonal flowering of the trees to make it beautiful looking out of the clubhouse. But then on the right and the left-hand side of the fairway, the trees that come out would be replaced with scarlet oaks that in time would get to be very large and fill in those spaces. We just would not have, we'd have a large tree, but we wouldn't have a lot of large trees crammed in a smaller spot. Hole number 2, par 5 dogleg right that plays along the street. There's some cherry trees, some old elm trees along there, a ton of evergreens that eventually should come out as we implement the landscape plan. But as we do landscape, we want to put in, again, a lower hedge of the lower leatherleaf viburnum between the T complex out to about the beginning of the fairway, which will provide a lower hedge but not inhibit air circulation in through the golf course. Once we get out towards the fairway and near the first landing area, we want to plug in some of the gaps that are existing with sugar maples, scarlet oaks, and more leatherleaf viburnums as we go down along the street. There is one big oak tree back along the first bunker complex on the right that is dying, so we will take that out and replace it as well. Inside the new planting and the plantings that remain, we want to add a series of dogwoods, again to add more seasonal flowering interest in there, and just some understory trees. But instead of having the right side of the hole just dominated by about 25 evergreen trees, we want to put about 6 or 7 in that are going to get bigger and allow the rough to be maintained in that area. Further up the right-hand side of the hole into the second landing area, we're going to take out more hemlocks, spruce trees, but replace them with bigger oak trees to fill in those gaps. Along the left-hand side of the hole, the woods between the golf hole and the tennis courts, it's another area where there's a lot of very densely planted trees that should be thinned and removed as time goes. It doesn't need to happen right away, but it's an area that should be addressed, showing oaks and sugar maples going back in that area. And then as you come up the hill around the dogleg of the second landing area, adding 3 Coosa dogwoods in front of the oak trees out there, which will then tie in with the dogwoods that are at hole number 9 as well. Moving to hole number 3. On hole number 3, we want to extend the planting of arborvitae green giant along the T complex to give a little bit more privacy to the club. The large oak tree on the right that catches a lot of balls and does encroach into the flight line of the golf hole is proposed to be removed. We have another black oak there that will in time get to be very large and help take up the space that tree took up. But behind that, we're adding another red oak to fortify the planting there. In the area between the green and the T complex on hole number 4, that's a project in the future. We want to think about moving that tee back to make the hole play a little bit longer, bring that fairway bunker on the right on 4 in a little bit more, so the oak tree and the hemlocks that are up there eventually need to come out to allow for the construction of that new tee complex. But in the immediate future, it's not necessary that they come out, but in the long run, they will. Then at 4T complex, we want to extend, we want to take out the surface berry that are there, which should really have a higher canopy, and our deciduous tree do not provide much screening there. So we want to add in another arborvitae screen along the T complex on hole number 4. Moving further down hole number 4, we want to selectively remove trees, but thin and limb trees as well. As the previous picture showed, we want to limb and thin the sweet gums here on the inside to allow for more of a view down through the golf hole. There's another dead sweet gum in there. We just want to replace it in kind, but with a seedless variety, so we don't get the gum balls that drop down there. Then between the first landing area and the green on the right, there are kind of really, you have a big mishmash of landscaping in there, a bunch of different kinds of evergreens, a lot of them in very poor health, but we do have some really nice oak trees and maples in there. So you want to take out the evergreens that are in decline, let the oak trees prosper and get very large. Then as we get out towards the street, this is one area where the maple or the elm trees are in very poor condition and have the very large root structure. So over a period of years, those trees should be removed, and oak trees and maples should take their place as we go down along the right side of hole number 4. On the left side of hole number 4, we have a nice opportunity short of the fairway and between the native area there on the left to add a big white oak tree that in time will help fill up that space and really look majestic out there on the hillside as you're playing that hole. And then around the outside of the dog leg on hole number 4, there's just, to my eye, a bunch of gaps in the landscaping that let your eye wander into hole number 5 instead of helping to turn it around on hole number 4. So I just want to close up those gaps a little bit with some red maple, a red oak, and then some flowering dogwoods in through there. As we get up near the green, we do have a lot of new oak trees planted there that are going to grow and get very large and fill in this row as time goes by, but it's also an excellent opportunity to expand the native area off the hillside and down around to the green complex. And that in itself will tighten up the playability and the challenge of that hole, because people going for that green and 2 will give it a little more thought how far up there they want to hit it, especially to the left if there's tall grass there. Moving to hole number 5, there's an old cherry tree and some spruce trees along the right side of the hole that we want to remove, but we want to put back maples and that will go with the maples that were already planted as we move down from the T complex. So these maples will then tie in with that landscaping that has taken place. On the side hill there below the bunker, there already exists some redbud trees, and we would just come down here between 15 and 5 and plant more redbuds, again out of play, but a nice spring flowering tree to add some beauty to the golf course. Moving to hole number 6, we've been round and around down on the mats on hole number 6. The left side is the place that's giving we've had the most discussion to. Past the bunker complex, we have 13 Norway spruce in there that are really in decline. The one picture I showed earlier showed one of the trees that had fallen down recently. We don't want to do away with all those trees, but I think they need to come out and eventually be replaced and help fortify the golf hole. But short and on the left, like hole number 4 to the left of the tees as you come down the hill, we can add a nice big white oak between the native area and the fairway area that will cut off the short alleyway to the left rough. Eventually taking out the spruce as discussed, adding zelkovas in here, which we also have zelkovas existing, and we want to add more along the right side of the golf hole, so we have a nice group of Zelkovas around the corner of the dog leg, and then these maple trees up here on hole number 3. The first one right off the tee, right now you can play over it and it really doesn't affect the golf hole too much, but in time, as that gets bigger, it's really going to grow right into the flight line of the hole. So we can simply take that and transplant it down here to the Zelkovas and fortify that planting. So we're going to walk through what this will look like. This is the existing conditions of the golf hole. Just off the right of the tee and in conjunction with 16, we have another very large, dense group of Norway spruce and a locust tree back here with some golden rain trees. We have a linden and Zelkovas and some chestnuts as we go up around the right-hand side of the hole. Then we have a sugar maple, 4 sycamores, and then the 13 Norway spruce in this copse here between the landing area and the green. In time, and we're going to focus on the left here, remove all the Norway spruce trees, preserve all the sycamores, and preserve the sugar maple. So that would be removal. But we're not just going to remove those trees and just leave it wide open. As you can see with the landscaping now, we have the maple and the 4 sycamores that we've left behind. We've come in with the white oak. We've come in with the Zelkova, and we've transplanted the red maple. And something I didn't mention at the beginning, the way these circles for new trees are drawn, these are the mature sizes of the trees. So that space is what you can expect the canopy of the tree to take up as it grows. So as you can see, this line of trees here were those 13 Norway spruce. We're taking out 13 trees and adding 3 in and basically covering the same area with tree canopy. What this looks like in real life, these are some recent aerial photographs, and we've done some Photoshop. You can see the sugar maple, the 4 sycamores, and then these are the 13 Norway spruce. I believe the tree that fell over was one of these up in here that was really thin at top and fell in this direction. But as we clear, we're going to first take out this group of spruce right here. You can see the maple trees up here on hole number 3, leaving these 4 trees in the initial removal of trees, the sycamores, and keeping the sugar maple. Then this would be what the plan would look like in approximately 5 years. We have the white oak up here in the left rough, the 2 Zelkovas that are added in, and the red maple transplanted down into the end of that row. So as you can see, even if you hit up in the left rough, you still have the maple, the sycamores, and 4 spruce to deal with if you need to punch out and try to get to the green. This also, you can see the new delineation of the fairway work that was just done at the end of the summer. So, as mentioned, we've expanded the fairway over here in front of the bunkers, and if you actually hit the fairway, which is a good thing, you're demanded to play around those spruce trees to get into the green. And then in 15 years, this would be an approximation of what the golf hole would look like. So by no means are we taking the trees out and leaving that area barren. We're going to take them down, plant immediately, and let the hole get reestablished. Hole number 7. The whole left side of this golf hole is another hole where there are a lot of evergreen trees planted very densely. They're reaching their mature age and thinning out, specifically up near the green more. And as we pan out, you can see the black marks. There are 19 Norway spruce here short of the green and 1 white pine. We have 5 white pines back here near the native area. Those trees eventually should come out, and then we'll put in a black oak and some Coosa dogwoods near the landing area off the tee shot, and that'll tie in with the oak trees that are already up around 7T, 8 green, and down the right side of the fairway as you come down hole number 7. Down towards the creek, I'm showing a London plane tree, which will tie in real nicely with these other sycamores and London plane trees down here along the creek bed. This elm tree then would get a partner on the left side of the hole with another Valley Forge elm tree. And then up in here, I've shown a small Norwegian maple, which will not get as big as a red maple or a sugar maple, but it has very vibrant fall color and be a nice medium-sized tree for that space. So we have more aerial photographs, and you can see we're talking about these evergreen trees here and this group up in here. We've got a lot of room between hole number 7 and 8, so there's no need to really create any kind of a massive buffer in that area. So this would be what the hole would look like after the evergreen trees come out and we implement the landscaping. We've got the London plane tree, the elm, and then the small maple with the new oak and the Coosa dogwoods in along the left-hand side. So it's a much higher canopy, much more air going through, but landscaping in all the same areas but just less dense. This is looking back from the green, so you can see the large group, the white pine and the 19 spruce. Taking those out, putting in the new trees, and instead of having golf cart path on both sides of this hole, we'll maintain the bridge down there at the creek crossing, but get rid of the golf cart path so we don't have asphalt on both sides of that golf hole. So that is another little project that will take place in conjunction with the landscaping. As we move to hole number 8, not a whole lot to do on hole number 8. Along the right side of the tee complex, we have a bunch of sweet gums up here on the hill, and we have 3 ash trees that are over here between the hole and number 10 tee. I want to add some of those Norwegian maples in there as understory trees, medium-sized trees, which will help tie in with the tree we've added between 7 green and 8 tee. Up in the landing area on the outside, I want to take down those 2 evergreen trees and add another Valley Forge elm in there, which again will be a very large tree that will take the place of those 2 evergreens that are in decline up in that area. And then we have 1 dogwood here. We would add 2 flowering dogwoods to make a much nicer series of flowering up in that area. On hole number 9, really not too much proposed for hole number 9. There's plenty of trees in and around hole number 9. We have 1 to come out, 2 spruce that are old that we do not need to keep and won't be missed, but the whole rest of the golf hole will remain as is. Moving through to hole number 10, 10 and 18 kind of work in conjunction, especially down the left side of the hole. Behind 18 and down the left side of 10, we have the very large group of Norway spruce, and I know why they were planted there is, to keep balls from getting into 18 green that were hit off of number 10, and when they were small, they probably did a very good job, but now they're very tall and you can run the ball under them. But again, they should come out. They have very severe root encroachment. We have 1 white pine back at the beginning of the fairway that can come out. But down the left-hand side, I'm showing a planting of Nannyberry viburnum, which will form a low hedge along the edge of the parking lot and the golf hole, just to shield that off a little bit more. Just when you're playing golf, we don't need to be looking into the parking lot of the golf club. Coming off of that, we would have more spurs of the Nannyberry that would create a lower hedge, which would help stop running shots that are hit wildly to the left. Then, where the spruce eventually would come out, we would play off of the existing sweet gums that we have over here, add another sweet gum, actually 2 sweet gums to make 5 sweet gums in that area, and then adding another red oak to play off of the existing red oak that we have to the left of the green. Down the right-hand side of the hole, I want to add 1 Norway spruce to this group of 2 here. Keep the white pines, but there are some other groups of spruce that are really clustered together that their health is in decline, so we want to take 2 or 3 of those out. Put in sweet gum here to play off of those, sugar maple and red oak. So a nice variety of trees as we go down the right side of hole number 10. As we go down 10, also into the green, there's a lot of white pines in that area. We're going to thin those out here and there, but definitely keep protection between 10 and 11. On hole number 11, not a lot of landscaping needed. We talked earlier about the oak trees on the left side along the fairway. We would propose to take 3 of those out, but keep 2 oak trees and the larch and the other large tree that is back here is a rather large spruce tree that we want to keep. So we're just thinning that area out, but we want to definitely keep a good buffer between 11 and 17. Just past the landing area, adding another one of our Norwegian maples, which ties in again with over 8, over 7, so we have a good composition of that tree. Off in the distance, out of the playability area, we want to add a series of dogwoods that would sit in front of the existing trees that are there, that when they're flowering and have a backdrop of other trees will just look beautiful in the spring. Again, here is 11, the picture we showed earlier with the golf cart in the fairway, moving over to the step cut of rough and then the primary rough. From the aerial photograph, this is what it currently looks like. And you can see up here in this area that the trees are just out competing the turf for the water that gets spread over there. You have a tremendous irrigation system at West Shore, and where the turf can get the water, it grows very thick and very lush, but the trees are always going to outcompete it and cause those areas to be very sparse. So when we talk about the balls running through that area and coming out down here and allowing an easier shot, it's because there's no grass there now. But as we go, we would take out the 3 closest and allow us to grow really good rough down the left side of the hole. And as you can see, we still have quite a few trees between 11 and 17. So we've got current and then proposed. Hole number 12, there's not a ton of work to be done on this hole either. I think it's a pretty neat golf hole. I know some people at the club think it's a weaker hole, but I think it's a pretty good golf hole. It makes you think. It's got some options, and it's pretty to stand on the tee and look down towards the green. We want to fortify the left side of the golf hole a little bit. We've got a bunch of dogwoods and some other maple trees along the left. We want to add maples and oaks in along the left. Similar to number 3 and number 6, over here in the right rough, we want to add another white oak, which will be stately over there by itself close to the native area. This is also an area where the native area, which ends approximately right there now, can be extended down towards 16T. And that's really the extent of the landscaping on hole number 12. Moving over to hole number 13, the left side of hole 13 has a lot of really nice trees, but again, so many are planted in a small area and it's really, really dense. We want to thin some of those trees out, but keep a large majority of the trees in place. Up around the green, there are a large amount of white pines that hurt sunlight and air circulation. We want to thin out some of those, but come in with a black gum tree, which the black gum then ties in with the work we want to do down at the pond. Between the 13th hole and the pump house, we have another very large group of evergreens that have been there forever. Right now, the best thing they could probably be used for would be to start a fire, because they're so old, they're so much in decline, and they really do need to be removed. So I know a lot of them have been taken out, but we want to continue to take them out. Along the pond, we want to continue the planting of black gum with 3 more black gums. It's a tree that really likes to have its feet wet and is deciduous, but has a tremendous fall color. It's a multicolor of leaves. Behind that come in with some swamp white oak, which is a oak tree that you have many of on the golf course already. We just want to add to that population. And then between 13 and 14, come in with a series of white pines. So we're adding evergreens back into the landscape that we've been taking out. And that would be the main body of work that we do at hole number 13. Then moving to 14, we just talked about this area right here. On hole 14, there's some juniper trees back along the tee complex that can come out. They really don't serve any purpose back there. We still have a lot of other trees, vegetation, and service-bearing that are kind of the lower canopy, in with the ginkgo and the large sycamore that are at the tee complex. We want to add Norwegian maple back here between the beginning of the fairway and the landing area. We have 2 oak trees in the right side here, and with all these other evergreens that are in decline. We want to take the ones out that are dead. This is an existing black oak that we want to let live. Where we've taken these oaks out, we want to add a scarlet oak down here at the end of the evergreen planting, and then where we have the poor health evergreens on the outside of the dogleg, we want to cut those down and add more scarlet oaks on the golf hole. So 14's theme for landscaping will be the scarlet oak hole. We already have 2 that are planted down here, and in time they'll get to be very large and frame the hole quite well. Behind the scarlet oaks, I am showing the addition of 3 Colorado blue spruce, which will add into the composition of the evergreen trees here that exist that we are preserving. This is another hole where we want to try to implement some of this work in the very near future. So this is the existing plan. We've got the red oak, which I said was a black oak, but it's a red oak. These are the oak trees that are in decline. We've got, I believe these are Douglas fir in here that are also planted very close and in decline, and then these 6 Norway spruce that are in very poor condition. So in time, the red oaks come out. We can systematically thin and remove the Douglas fir, and then the Norway spruce will come out. Coming back in with oak trees, our white pines, and more the other oak at the end when we systematically remove those, and then filling in the outside of the dogleg with the oak trees and the Colorado blue spruce. Moving on to hole number 15, another nice little golf hole at West Shore, short par 4. We've got a cherry tree and a Norway spruce on the right side that we want to take out, but we also, this is a hole where we're going to put more trees in to make a much nicer composition through the golf hole. Down the left side of the hole existing, we have a lot of sugar maples. We want to add another sugar maple out here where there was one existing just outside the limit of the irrigation main line, but it'll frame in with this bunker very nicely. Coming over here on the right side of the golf hole, adding 2 more sugar maples that'll get to be large trees, provide good blocking of the view to the tees on 13 and the green on number 12. But in front of that, and in and around it, on each side of the hole, we want to plant a variety of Fort McNair horse chestnut, which is a variety tree which isn't out at West Shore, but it's a mid-sized tree that'll get some beautiful pink flowers on. It'll be a little bit different, and it'll just tie in real well with the other plantings that we do. So we do plan to fortify both sides of hole number 15. As that takes place, we've got the cherry and the spruce that were mentioned, another spruce up here that comes out. Then we have the sugar maples down the left-hand side of the hole, trees that come out, and then the new landscaping. Moving on to hole number 16. Hole number 16 is another hole where we've had some significant fairway expansion, trying to further implement the intent of the master plan that was created many years ago. Nothing too much along the left side of the hole. We talked briefly on hole number 6 how eventually we want to take out the group of Norway spruce at 16 and 16T. that would be replaced with more golden rain tree, scarlet oaks, white oaks, and then more lindens along the left side to tie in with the linden we already have out there existing on the right side of hole number 6. On the inside of the dog leg, we have a very nice sycamore back here. We have a black oak, which is alive, but I believe in fairly significant decline. So we would propose a new swamp white oak to be replacing that black oak, which would tie in with the existing swamp white oak we have here. Take out the locust trees and a few evergreens that are along the bunker complex. Replace it with a big red oak on the inside. So we want to, again, thin out areas where we have too many trees, put a few back, bigger varieties. On the right-hand side, these spruce trees can systematically be limbed and thinned, taken out. We want to keep a few. Nice place to add another one of our Norwegian maples and another scarlet oak on the inside of the flight line there on hole number 16. Moving to hole number 17, up the left-hand side, there's quite a few evergreen trees that are in decline that we want to systematically remove, but that will just give the trees that exist more room to thrive and prosper, also allow us to grow a little better rough in that area. The main work on hole number 17 will be down the right-hand side, where we want to fortify our buffer with the golf hole. As you know, most golfers tend to slice the ball, and here at West Shore, a lot of the golf holes have the road on the right-hand side, so we want to make sure we're providing protection for the golf course where we can. At the tee complex, we're going to extend the planting of arborvitae all the way up past the forward tee quite significantly to halfway between where the forward tee is and the beginning of the fairway to provide more privacy for the golfers here at the club. That would come up. We keep the existing evergreen trees we have here, then have another series of arborvitae. So we really want to wall off the right-hand side of the golf hole there. As we go up the right-hand side of the hole, in time, the evergreens that are there will need to be thinned and replaced. I think they're doing a very good job right now, but we've shown plugging in some other red maples, some linden trees, which grow dense but more upright, and then we have some European hornbeams, which is another dense, upright tree along the boundary here at the corner of the road and the corner of the dog leg of the hole. And we want to make sure that we maximize the playing area to the right of the hole, but also fortify it with some landscaping. So that's why we've gone a little bit more narrow and a little bit more upright in those areas. Up at the green, the serviceberry have served their lifetime there. There's also some pine trees that need to come out, similar to hole number 2 and 3. We're showing a screen of leatherleaf viburnum in this area, which again will be a semi-evergreen, about 10-foot tall screen, and those are plants that do well in the shade. Moving on to hole number 18, really no specific landscaping to the 18th hole. It's all behind the green and ties in with what we wanted to do coming up the left side of hole number 10, adding some larger trees back into the area where the Norway spruce eventually will need to be replaced, adding some understory to help stop shots that are running hot towards the 18th green. So that's the hole-by-hole presentation of the landscape plan. I do have a slide of all the trees that I've proposed to plant on the golf course. As I mentioned, for deciduous trees, I would recommend that the club plant trees of at least 3-inch caliper, which is going to be a height of approximately 15 to 18 feet when they come in. Evergreen trees, I would recommend 12 to 15 feet tall, and those are big trees if they're huge trees if they're anywhere near your house, but in the landscape of a golf course, they're not going to look huge to begin with, but in time, that'll give them a really good jump to mature much more quickly. Picture of the red maple, red sunset is that variety. Again, a large, medium large deciduous tree, sugar maple. There's many sugar maples out on the golf course we want to add to that population. Here's our Keith's Form Norwegian maple. Again, a smaller maple than the sugar maple and the red maple. Gets some vibrant fall color. Here's our Fort McNair horse chestnut, which definitely gets some very beautiful pink flowers on it. You can see them scattered throughout the canopy of the tree there, which will look really nice out on hole number 15. This is the European hornbeam, which, as you can see, grows more upright. We just talked about that as a tree to plant along hole number 17 on the right side between the golf hole and the grove. The eastern redbud, one of the native flowering trees of the area. You can never have too many of those, in my opinion. The white fringe tree is a tree that we can use as a nice flowering tree. It flowers a little bit later in the spring than the dogwoods and the magnolias. Here's a picture of the white flowering dogwood and the pink flowering dogwood. As you can see, these two trees, these two dogwoods, they flower without leaves on them earlier in the season. We also have quite a few Coosa dogwoods proposed for the property. As you can see, these flower after they get their leaves. So the flowering dogwoods flower first in the season, and the Coosa dogwoods flower after that. So it's just a really nice transition. We've got at least one honey locust proposed for the plan. More golden rain tree. We already have a few golden rain tree on the golf course. This is another tree that is really nice because it does flower in the summer when very little else does flower. A picture of the sweet gum. We want to make sure we specify a seedless variety to keep our maintenance requirements down. We've shown some saucer magnolias specifically behind number 5 green to help tie in with the saucer magnolia that are already out there. This is one of the earliest flowering trees of the season. The black gum, which goes over by hole number 13. Again, it's a tree that likes to have its feet wet and get some very beautiful fall foliage. The Norway spruce. This is a prime example of a nice healthy spruce compared to some of the pictures we had of the ones thinning out earlier in the presentation. Colorado blue spruce. White pine, this is the species, and then we have a variety, fastigiata, which grows more upright. There's definitely a spot on the golf course for both varieties of that tree. The London plane tree, which we have specified for over there on hole number 7, down along the creek. You can see the cars in the foreground or the background there, so you can kind of get a good sense of the scale of that tree. Now we get into our series of oaks. We have a lot of oaks, very hardy tree in this area, usually have tap roots and are fairly clean. The white oak, red oak, similar character. We've got the swamp white oak, which we already have. I mentioned we have a few existing on the golf course already. Scarlet oak, magnificent tree. Again, you can see the size of the tree in relation to that's a Chevy Tahoe, which isn't a small car. The pin oak, which grows a little bit more upright. The red oak, the black oak, which in age gets more, again, spreads a little bit more, gets a little bit more open in its age. The arborvitae green giant, now this is maybe a little bit larger than we would want them to grow to, but we would plant them in a hedgerow. You can trim them, they take pruning quite well, and we can make a very dense hedge where we need some privacy. The green spire linden, another dense, upright, pyramidal tree. And then these are pictures of the American elm Valley Forge variety. We don't want to plant species American elm anymore due to the Dutch elm disease, but the Valley Forge variety has shown good resistance to the Dutch elm disease. And then these are our viburnums, where we want to plant along the edge, along the tennis courts. The Lantego viburnum is the one that goes along the parking lot. the Allegheny leatherleaf, which looks kind of rhododendron-like in its leaf characteristic, are the ones we're planting along the property boundary and the streets. And then this is the Zelkova, which is a very vase-shaped tree similar to the American elm. So that is our tree palette. That's my presentation. I hope you have learned something about how we set out to not only remove trees systematically, but put a lot more trees back on to the golf course here at West Shore Country Club. Thank you.